Cheers.
Oh, cheers. Oh, that's good. I keep having this nagging feeling that I've forgotten something.
Hey, if you forgot it, it probably wasn't all that important.
Yeah, I guess.
Hi, guys. It's me, just an OSC enjoyer, just author 41. Today, I want to talk about Pin's undeserved hate again. I made this video because firstly, I forgot to mention some things related to her, supposedly, pointless hate towards some contestants. Secondly, I have a couple of new thoughts about Pin and her behavior and personality. And thirdly, in the previous part of this video, most of you disagreed with my arguments and opinions regarding Pin, and at some point, I can agree with you. Basically, the complaints were about the second and third reasons. I will try to explain them throughout this video. Also, I was wondering, who else besides me and Henry made a video about Pin's undeserved hate? And guess what? I found absolutely nothing. That is, in fact, Henry and I were the first who decided to discuss this topic in a video. But what you might not know is that I was the one who came up with one of the ideas for his video, you guessed it, the Pin's undeserved hate video. And I was the one who originally planned to release the Pin's undeserved hate video on this channel, but because of my laziness, it was released on my friend's channel. And yes, subscribe to him, because he worked on the video as hard as I did. And he even made a thumbnail of his video based on my old thumbnail for my video. Sorry for the long introduction. Let's get to the point of this video. Let's start with something simple. I forgot to explain this reason for the hate in the last video, so I'll mention it here. Many people are saying that Pin kicks Nickel out of her team for no reason, and that she treats him very badly and very wrongly. I will say that she actually has reasons for this. Sure, I could just use the same arguments from the first part, and say that she hates him as much as everyone else, because she was tortured too much and for too long and she formed thoughts that the whole world was against her. But you clearly didn't come here for that. So I'll explain to you the reason why Pin doesn't accept Nickel into her team. Look, in BFDIA 15, she didn't let Nickel into her team because firstly, there simply weren't enough free spots in her team, and secondly, Pin would never leave Coiny for another coin, with which she didn't talk to that much. Plus, she was friends with Bomby and talked to him more than with Nickel. And that's why exactly she told Nickel to leave her team. And she didn't yell at him, didn't swear at him, didn't beat him up, and oh. She just told him to leave, and she politely asked him to leave in BFDIA 16.
How did our team get so small?
And it's about to get smaller. Nickel, go away, please.
Okay.
He wasn't even against it. Nickel wasn't offended.
I'm highly offended!
He wasn't insulted by that. It didn't happen either. He just calmly left Pin. And anyway, he initially wanted to stay with TB. If Nickel had been offended by Pin's words or Pin had done something bad to him, then, that would have been a different story. But hating her because she didn't let Nickel into her team, and with her own reasons, is really weird. And Pin didn't let Nickel into her team not because of personal dislike for him, but simply because there was no place for him in this team. She had her own choice and she had the right to accept or not accept someone into her team. That's all. All this time, you should have thought about that with some logic, and then, you wouldn't have hated her for this reason. But no, in the end, I have to explain all this for you so that you would understand everything and stop hating Pin literally without any justified reasons. Well, there is an exception, of course, and it's book. But we will get to that reason later. For now, let's move on to Bomby. As we know, Pin didn't care about Bomby's elimination. But why did she react that way? Let's look at BFDA 12. It was there that it was shown that Bomby didn't care about her and used Pin as a tool to catch up fries. And the fact that he absolutely didn't care that it was his teammate, whom he should take care of like everyone else on the team. After all, that's what a team is for, to work together and think not only for yourself, but also for everyone else on the team. And on the one hand, this is just a stupid way to put the character in a bad way. And on the other, it can explain her indifference during Bomby's elimination. Look, Pin's face was taken away and she was reduced in size, and it would seem obvious, ordinary objects cannot feel anything. But you forgot about the fact that this is an object show, and that everything is not so simple here with seemingly dead contestants. Example, box from Inanimate Insanity. Initially, she was presented as a joke and as just a box, which is no different from all the other boxes. Like, everyone was worried about her, and like everyone thought that box had feelings, just like all the other contestants. And that's how it actually turned out. Because in II-18 it turned out that box was actually alive before, but an accident happened to her, and she was actually dead during the second and third seasons. And if you think about it, then throughout all this, she could actually feel everything that happened there. All this pain and suffering that she went through, like Pin in BFDIA 12. It was not for nothing that I decided to give an example with Box from II. After all, Pin, in fact, was in a similar situation. She used to be alive, then she lost her face and became inanimate. But even though she lost it and her size, she still had her subconscious and her mind, and she could still feel everything that was happening to her. And that's why she asked Coiny in BFDI 12 and 13 to help her get back to the state she was in before her face was taken away, and so on. So Pin was communicating with Coiny through her self-awareness, and because Coiny was so loyal to Pin, he could hear her consciousness in his head. And if you think about it logically, since she could feel everything that was happening to her in BFDI 12, you can understand that she felt that Bomby simply betrayed her and used her as a tool, not taking Pin seriously. And that's why Pin didn't care about Bomby's elimination. Because she harbored a grudge against Bomby for literally throwing her away somewhere far away. As if to imply that Bomby didn't care about Pin at all. And that's a perfectly valid reason why she didn't care about Bomby's elimination. But BFDIA 14 kinda ruins my arguments a little bit, with Bomby's reaction to Pin's return. And you'd think that Pin kinda forgave Bomby for that, since she wasn't mad at Bomby in BFDIA 14 to 15. And in BFDIA 16, it wasn't shown that she held a grudge against him directly. She just calmly reacted to his elimination, and didn't jump and scream with joy that he finally got what he deserved. She did it because she didn't want to upset Bomby. But the question is, does Bomby regret his actions in BFDA 12? The answer, I think, is obvious. Of course not. And I think that because Pin knows that Bomby is aware of what he did to her and doesn't regret it, she holds a grudge against him, and that's why she didn't care about Bomby's elimination. If Bomby didn't care about Pin, then why would she care about him in the first place? And that's it. And besides this reason why Bomby was hated at the time, there was another one. He was considered an overrated character, and that he was getting too many prizes for doing almost nothing, also noting that he was ruined in post-hiatus. And the fact that Bomby didn't care about Pin only added fuel to the fire of his hate. So the fact that Bomby was eliminated in BFDIA 16 is your fault. You wanted him eliminated earlier in BFDIA 9 to 11. Why should you blame Pin for this? After all, it's not her fault for being shrunken and faceless because of Ruby and Ice Cube. It's not her fault that Bomby didn't care about her. In that case, you should blame the writers, because they are responsible for this, not the character itself. And you know what? It's not even Pin's or Bomby's fault either. After all, in BFDI 12 he tried with all his might to stop Fries, and because of him they became enemies, and in a fit of hatred for Fries, he forgot that Pin was his ally. And he simply used her to catch up Fries and kill him, thereby taking revenge on him. That is, Fries is to blame for Bomby doing this to Pin. Since, he was the only one on the team and he was on his own, because he wanted to, and when he was alone, he used Bomby as a tool, which is why Bomby hated him. And do you know why Fries wanted to stay on his own in the team? Just for fun, I guess. That's about how I can describe the writer's words about the reason why Fries did it. And I can conclude from this that Bomby, because he didn't care about Pin and used her as a tool to get revenge on Fries, and Pin knows about it, letting us know by her indifference to Bomby's elimination, and Fries, because he used Bomby as a tool for his own purposes, provoking Bomby's hate towards him, were to blame for this. And yes, don't think that I don't like Fries. I think about him the absolute opposite. He generally carried BFDIA 10 and he was the only reason why this episode is not at the very bottom. But don't get me wrong, it's Bomby's and also Fries' fault that Pin was used as a tool and didn't care about Bomby's elimination. I have already explained why. By the way, although this is not quite on topic, but in BFDI 11, Pin could show with her ooze what she likes and what she doesn't, despite the fact that her face was taken away. And therefore, you can understand from the fact that she didn't sweat in BFDIA 12 when Ruby asked if Pin liked Free Smart, that she kinda likes it. Although on the other hand, Pin would be better off sweating, thereby showing Ruby that she likes Free Smart. But I think that Ruby wouldn't understand Pin anyway and would have shrunk her, in one way or another. And that only further confirms my words about Ruby in the previous part, that Ruby shrunk Pin in size, because of her stupidity. And now, let's move on to the next contender. So, many wrote comments below under the previous video that Pin wanted to kill Leafy, but killed PSB instead, despite the fact it was an accident, and that's why Pin deserves to lose her limbs. But, many forgot that Leafy then stole the island from all contestants. And Pin's motives for killing Leafy are quite reasonable, since Leafy stole what everyone had been battling for so long, just to have someone steal it from them at one moment, and this may sound like a reason why she could take such a step. And the chase for Leafy began, and Pin was among them. After Leafy was caught, they were going to execute her in front of everyone, and then return Dream Island. And judging by the fact that Pin wanted to get rid of Leafy in BFDIA 5A, you can understand that she is trying to finish what all the contestants once started. If everyone else could execute Leafy, then why Pin can't? Also, everyone, including Pin, was chasing Leafy to execute her because she stole Dream Island from everyone, since Fiery wouldn't let her in because Leafy just didn't like his Ferris wheel. And you know what? That's honestly a really stupid reason not to let her in Dream Island. It doesn't get any stupider than that. So, Fiery, for not letting Leafy onto the island for no reason, and Leafy, for stealing the island from everyone, and because of that everyone wanted to execute her, including Pin, who tried to do it even after everyone started to forget about Leafy, are to blame for this situation, and you still blame Pin for that? I don't think she deserves to rip her limbs off, just because she was trying to get justice, for everyone, by trying to kill Leafy and prove that the thief was caught and the island will be returned to Fiery. Think about it, Pin thinks about others first, and only then about herself. Remember these words, because they will be useful to us in the future. Let's move on to the main subject of discontent and hatred towards Pin. And now we have come to the main object of claims to the previous part of this video. And it's Book. I admit, I talked nonsense there. And in general, this was just my assumption about her, nothing more, as I said in the previous part. But now I will rephrase what was in that video in a more understandable language, plus I will add a couple of new thoughts regarding all this. So, I wanted to convey to you that Pin kinda protects Book from who she will become in the future in relation to Ice Cube, and that she begins to decide everything for Ice Cube and how it's better for her, without thinking about what she really wants. And Pin threatened Book with a knife so that she would remember her words about this. About the fact that first of all you need to think not only about yourself, but also about others, without deciding what's best for them. Pin said the same words to Book in BFB, when she already had a conflict with Taco. But Book in BFDIA didn't learn that lesson, which resulted in her being separated from Ice Cube in BFB and TPOT for a long time. And Ice Cube didn't want to interact with Book for a long time after that incident. And even when they got closer in TPOT 12 to 13, they still couldn't talk to each other properly. Because they understand that they don't want to be associated with the Free Smart that was in BFDIA anymore because of Pencil and Match, who used their teammates for their own purposes. And it's even confirmed in TPOT 14 that Pencil is persistent and clingy, especially to her former friends like Book and Ice Cube. And overall, I can say that everything Pin wanted to tell Book in BFDIA 5A was meant to benefit her. And that's why she often reminds her about Book not letting Ice Cube on the swing. As if hinting that she should stop doing this and deciding everything for Ice Cube. And judging by the fact that in IDFB Pin no longer reminds Book about this, you can understand that Book remembered her words. But not for long, since she had already forgotten about it in BFB, and already in BFB 13 Pin had to remind her about it again, only in a slightly different context. But the essence of her words remained the same. First of all, you need to think not only about yourself, but also about others, without deciding what's best for them. So her hatred towards Book is quite justified. because Pin is trying with all her might to attract her attention and show that her words are true and come out for a reason. And that's true. Pin's words turned out to be true in BFB. And in fact, she achieves her goal. And what about Ice Cube? Have you ever thought about what bad Pin did to Ice Cube? Some of you might say that she threatened Book and Ice Cube in BFDIA 5A. But based on my arguments, she is rather trying to protect Ice Cube from Book, who will become completely different, not like herself in BFB. And that Ice Cube also has her own desires and choices. She didn't understand this at first, but then she understood it in BFB, and somewhere in BFB 13 to 14 she left Book, knowing that she has her own choice and her own opinion. And the fact that Pin didn't let her into Match's dance party is a trifle, of which there are plenty. And Ice Cube? But because of this trifle she took Pin's face in BFDIA 11. What kind of person do you have to be to do something like that? And you seriously think that it's right to deprive a person of his face just because he didn't let you into some party? What kind of society do we live in if this is accepted? Seriously, I thought that there couldn't be anything stupider than Ruby's action to shrink Pin and Fiery's move to not let Leafy onto the island because she didn't like his Ferris wheel. But I was wrong. This act just hit a new bottom with its stupidity. And you still managed to hate Pin for this? I feel so sorry for Pin, because she's trying her best to prove to them that her words mean a lot, but no one, except Coiny, listened to her. And she gets even more hate for it. And to be honest, I never really disliked Pin. Even in the very first season. And sometimes I just don't understand the logic of OSC. And I decided to explain this book thing, because no one has even tried to explain it before. And I decided to at least try to explain it all, despite the fact that I can be considered an idiot, since I try to explain such obvious things. And I think this is the only reasonable explanation for why Pin still reminds Book that she did not let Ice Cube on the swing even after so long. Otherwise, Pin wouldn't do that. Okay, let's move on to the results. If you think about it, why would you hate Pin at all, if I've already explained, roughly speaking, almost everything regarding those reasons? For her personality? Many say that in BFDIA, post-hiatus, and not only, her character is even worse than in BFDI. But this is far from true. Yes, in some places she sometimes behaves like in BFDI, but it is clear that she has become kinder and is trying to improve. But she is still not absolutely identical in character to IDFB or BFB. So, her personality kinda stuck between the first season, early post-hiatus and late pre-hiatus. But not IDFB. And she has become kinder, but not completely, still having the makings of BFDI. So we need to accept the fact that she became kinder, even although having first season traits. How to accept the fact that Pin is one of the most overhated characters right now. And this is not the first time. There are characters who suffered a similar fate as Pin. And some of them don't deserve even a half of this hate. I'm talking about Foldy and Loser, by the way. 8-Ball is starting to develop in TPOT, which is why his hate is dying down. And Eggy. Well, she's just Eggy. There's nothing special about her. She's alright, and that's all I can say about her. And what all these characters have in common with Pin is that they were absolutely unfairly hated. Well, except for Eggy, because I don't care about her hate, and I haven't seen much of it lately. All of them are hated literally for no reason. And I can describe this whole situation with Pin's hate like this: well, this is just stupid. Seriously, all the reasons for Pin hate are completely stupid. The exception is Book. This is the only thing you can disagree with me on, although my explanation regarding Book seems pretty logical. But the most important thing that you missed from the previous part of my analysis is its main idea. And the main idea was that looking at all this hate towards Pin, and looking at what she goes through, I can say that all Pin wants in BFDIA is to be heard. If you look at my arguments like that, you can understand that is approximately what Pin wants to achieve in BFDA. And she will achieve it. And for what purpose did they start hating Pin? If not for the sake of confirming that the writers screwed up once again, then for what purpose? Because sometimes it seems to me that this is just hate for the sake of hate. I can't find another explanation. And sometimes, I feel like Pin is even more overhated in BFDIA than Foldy in BFB and TPOT. And I think she definitely doesn't deserve that much hate for absolutely no reason. And the writers are to blame first and for writing the character that way, not the character herself, as I've said many times. It's time for you to remember that. Otherwise, it turns out that the character is being hated, and it's not the writer's fault. In this case, the writers are to blame, just like with Loser. Pin's hate really doesn't have any sense, so yeah. And if you still hate Pin, then I won't judge you, because who am I to judge someone's opinion? I respect everyone's opinion, no matter how different it is from mine. And let's be objective, Pin is overhated, that's for sure. Well, I hope that after the second part everything became clearer and more understandable why Pin doesn't deserve her hate. After all, I tried to listen to you and take into account everything that you wrote about Pin in the last video and include it in my analysis. And I don't have to say a lot about Pin in BFDIA 17, since I don't really see any reason why she can be hated there other than the reasons mentioned above. Plus, I didn't really see people who started hating her after BFDIA 17, so I don't see the point of discussing it in the video. And one of my next videos will be about Barf Bag, that she is underrated and why. She is quite an interesting character, but for some reason nobody really cares about her. It's a shame, as for me, she had potential. But I do not promise that I will make this video, since I am a very lazy, although quite speculative girl. And I make videos rather once in every 2,763 years. And yeah, like, subscribe to my channel, to my friend's channel, also write a comment below to promote this video, and if you want, you can write hashtag #JusticeForpin so that as many people as possible know about this video. And that's all. Until next time.